And he'll want, once he gets over 50 kilometres an hour, that extra boost. Has he got enough of it?
You'll see the orange lights flashing on the mirrors because that means station car. It's a safety light, but as soon as they select gear, they should go out.
There's the Aston Martin garage. Scotty James, Olympic medalist in the snowboarding, alongside his wife Chloe, daughter, I should say, Lance Stroll's sister, Lawrence Stroll's daughter. I am full of anticipation and keeping my fingers crossed for this start, as we got the green flag now and the starting procedure with the blue panels flashing. Here is the crescendo of noise around Albert Park, and now come on the lights. We're all revved up and ready to go. It's lights out, away we go. Oh wow, that wasn't the start we've seen before, but it was from Isaac Hadjar. George Russell under pressure. Charles Leclerc coming to join him in the first corner. Charles Leclerc leads the Grand Prix from George Russell. Lewis Hamilton on the grass. Hadjar swoops past him. Lando Norris trying to maintain position in fifth, and he's going wheel to wheel at the moment with Arvid Lindblad, but it's Charles Leclerc who starts brilliantly. George Russell just couldn't get off the line, and behind George Russell comes Isaac Hadjar. Kimi Antonelli has lost places at the start.
Yeah, Antonelli bogged down. Hamilton passed Norris in three. Norris quite cautious on the brakes. He was sort of in the middle of two other cars though, but that Ferrari start we've been talking about, it worked out a treat for them, didn't it?
And I'm told there was no battery for Kimi Antonelli, hence his problems at the start. New era, and he's already experiencing just how complex it could be. But look, racing here, Esteban Ocon being pursued by Pierre Gasly and going into the left-hander. The Racing Bull swoops past Isaac Hadjar. Arvid Lindblad having an absolute dream start in his debut here, but will the Red Bull come back at him? Has he used a bit too much battery? We'll see. As it's tactics and deployments and wheel-to-wheel racing, and Lewis Hamilton now gets ahead of Arvid Lindblad because he was just biding his time, and strategically he got it right.
Hamilton 41, 381 starts, Lindblad 18, and this is his first ever start, and he aced it, didn't he? But he's been under a little bit of pressure through the rest of the lap, and Leclerc and Russell comfortable out front, but this has worked out beautifully for Ferrari.
Certainly has. Charles Leclerc, last time we had a big regulation change from 21 into 2022. Charles Leclerc won 2 of the opening 3 Grand Prix that season, and he leads this on lap 2 from George Russell and Lewis Hamilton in 3rd. Isaac Hadjar ahead of Arvid Lindblad, Lando Norris in 6th, then Antonelli, Ocon up to 8th, Gasly up to 9th, and Fernando Alonso in 10th.
That's extraordinary. Verstappen up to 16th. It probably wasn't the first lap I was expecting there, but he's gained places obviously, but two of the drivers weren't on the grid.
Here comes George Russell behind Charles Leclerc, trying to hunt him down on the far side of the lake, trying to go round the outside of the turn line. Charles Leclerc having nothing of it. This is where, on this part of the circuit in qualifying, George Russell was superb, and his car superb in battery deployment, and look at that! An exact carbon copy of what he was doing in qualifying yesterday to get ahead of Charles Leclerc. But can Leclerc now fight his way back with maybe a little bit more battery at his disposal? Leclerc is just being thwarted for the time being.
Yeah, if Russell's got a little bit of oversteer coming out of the penultimate corner, but if he's got some energy over the line, he should be able to defend down into the first corner, and he's got a boost button as well he can use to keep the motor really flying along, but you might pay a price later on in the lap.
If George was using his boost, then he's going to have a lower battery deployment available to him on this lap, so he could be vulnerable from Charles Leclerc behind him. Meanwhile, his teammate Kimi Antonelli struggling a little bit in these opening stages. He's behind Lando Norris and trying to close in on the McLaren. Start procedure infringement for Franco Colapinto. He is under investigation from the stewards. Fastest man on the track is Lewis Hamilton currently, and he's reduced the arrears to Charles Leclerc by about 8/10 on the lap and a half that we've just had.
And apparently Isaac Hadjar in the Red Bull is radioing in. He feels he's got some kind of engine problem.
Here comes Charles Leclerc, trying to use the boost, maybe with a bit of overtake as well, and definitely with the lead of the race. While that's happening, Lando Norris is under pressure from Kimi Antonelli, who this time last year got past Lewis Hamilton in that part of the track. Leclerc about a car length ahead. They said they couldn't go racing in these cars and it wouldn't be that close. They were wrong.
They're learning so much live, aren't they? Real time as to how to best get the the power, how to best use the power unit. Well over 1,000 horsepower when everything kicked in. But these two squabbling is helping Lewis Hamilton very nicely in third place.
So here's the thing, for George Russell, he's had a go, and he's got past Charles Leclerc, but Leclerc's got past him, and he's now got to have a little think, Martin. Where tactically can I get the Ferrari and stay ahead of the Ferrari on the next few laps? And whilst he's got to think about that, he's got to worry about Lewis Hamilton, and that gap now is about a second between Russell and Hamilton.
Yeah, and Lewis Hamilton's being able to sit there, minding his own business, optimising his power unit. And where you need a full battery is coming out of turn 6 right here, because you've got two long straights to follow, and let's see what
sweets and trying to eat as many as he can straight away. But sitting back is Bernie Collins, thinking, I'm just going to take my time and I'm going to get some sweets when the others have run out. And that is boost for you in 2026. If you play around with a boost and you try and make some overtakes, that's fine, but you are going to pay for it a little later on. And if you just sit back and watch people squabble, then you might be able to take advantage. There's Kimi Antonelli getting past Arvid Lindblad and moving up into 5th place.
Indeed. So, just to put it in perspective, an average British household uses 140 megajoules a day. These cars are collecting 8 per lap. Every 16 laps, it could run your house for a day. And that's the kind of electrical energy we're talking about. But they've got to find out how best to deploy it.
So we've lost downforce because the cars are smaller and nimbler. The aerodynamics have changed. And we've reduced drag by about 55%. I've got to say, Martin, it looks like you're able to follow and keep close to cars in front for a little bit longer than we were having last year in 25.
Yeah, and because everybody's wing opens, of course, there's no DRS advantage like that. What they can do is they've got an overtake mode. If you're within 1 second, it's just very close to the entry to the final corner. You're allowed to harvest a bit more electrical energy. At the moment, that doesn't seem like it's enough to make the big difference. But we don't want just easy-peasy overtakes.
So Kimi off the line, not the best start he'll ever make. George Russell was kind of going sideways for a minute. Charles Leclerc slicing his way through and into turn 1 in the lead.
And Lewis got very wide in turn 1 and had to get out of it. And that actually cost him quite dearly, as you see then Lando Norris going past him, and then but Lewis sneaking back up the inside. But otherwise, Lewis would have been right there with George on those opening few corners.
He certainly would. We've got the live pictures on the left-hand side of your screen, and we're watching at the start now with Charles Leclerc. From 4th to 1st, look at the wheel spin that Kimi Antonelli was getting. Hadjar's going over to the right. Charles Leclerc wanted to follow, and then the cap opens. Moses and the Red Sea parting down the middle.
Yeah, I think we foresaw that one. Lindblad going a lovely drive away. They can't use the battery power until they're doing over 50 miles an hour. So 30 miles an hour, and so I think it was just wheel spin. I think it was just the rear tyres. George Russell right in the action now.
Yeah, he's coming back. Charles Leclerc, he moves over to try and defend, but I'm not sure he can here. And can he just stays ahead of George Russell going into turn 11, but Russell is almost pushing that Ferrari along. He is staying right with him here, and Hamilton just hanging back in the background, waiting for these two to use up their boost button, use up their power, and see if he can strike.
George will be on the phone complaining that defensive move is too late, but we're going to see an awful lot of that in this phase of Formula One, where you're going to have to defend in an unreasonable manner in these situations.
I think George has already been on the phone, Martin, complaining, or the team radio button. I have a phone in the car. Here we go.
That was very dangerous by Leclerc, especially what we spoke about in briefing.
I don't know.
So what they would have spoken about in briefing is that because the cars can suddenly slow down when they're charging their batteries towards the end of the straight, you don't really want to be right underneath another car because it'd be so easy to take your front wing off. I'm not surprised George complained about that, but Charles, I don't think the stewards will have too much problem with that, but it was right on the limit of being dangerous driving.
On board with George Russell as we are now in pursuit of Charles Leclerc down towards turn 11. Just watch the rain lights on the Ferrari. That is when he starts to put more energy and more power into the battery. They call it super clipping, and it's just a recharge mechanism on the straights, so he's got a nice big battery pack full of energy to get out of the corner. While that goes on, we haven't talked about Max Verstappen, who from 20th on the grid has made his way up now into 11th place, and he's chasing down Ollie Behrman. Watch Verstappen, he could well be a feature in the top 6 by the end of this race, starting on the hard tyre and trying to go long in this first stint.
He'll need some clear air later on, though, to make that work, because, you know, he's heading towards being a pit stop behind the leaders already. Look, and here comes Russell.
George Russell got past Charles Leclerc. Leclerc's fought this one back. George Russell just squeezes the Ferrari then into turn 3 and retakes the lead of this race. What's that now? 4 swaps of lead we've had in the first 8 laps. Liking this so far, and George Russell back out in front. He'll be liking that position, but how long can he defend this?
Let's watch this run down to turn 9 to see if George was a little bit trigger happy on the battery and if the Ferrari can come back at him.
And if not here, into turn 11 as well. He's got opportunities, but he wants to go dancing round the outside. Charles Leclerc, get in there. That's very nice indeed. Charles Leclerc let George Russell have his moment at turn 3, and then into turn 9 and 10, he took that moment back again. Russell's going to try and defend this. This is racing in 2026, and this is the way we wanted it to be. It's tactical, it's strategic, and it is high-speed chess out there with one swap of the lead after the other.
And Lewis Hamilton and then benefits from squabbling and using their power in an inefficient way, trying to get track position. And here comes Russell again.
Here comes Russell again into turn 1. It's a massive lock-up from George Russell. He did well to stay on the track, but Charles Leclerc is going to get that lead back again. And Russell surely has flat-spotted his tyres and is now under threat from Lewis Hamilton, who just for one moment thought a gap was opening up for him. 3 cars within about 2 car lengths going into turn 3. Leclerc leads Russell, leads Hamilton, and Hamilton's coming now at the Mercedes.
George Russell arrived at the corner because he was on the boost, arrived at turn 1 faster than on the other laps, and that's why he was too late on the brakes. He'll have a horrendous vibration from that tyre. He's got to carry that now, and that cost him dearly. But it's quite exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, not sure what George Russell would have said when he had that lock-up. Blimey, I think might have been the word that comes into my mind.
I didn't think he'd make the corner. I thought he was going through the grass, to be honest. So he did well to cadence brake, get off the brakes, but to lock a tyre that much at super high speed, you really do flat spot them badly.
Franco Colapinto has a stop-and-go penalty for a starting procedure infringement to be served at his next pit stop.
Now look for Kimi Antonelli.
Yes.
Minding his own business, minding his own battery. Fastest lap of the race for him so far, and he's bringing himself right into play. Ferrari versus Mercedes, a little bit of a gap back to Hadjar, but not massive actually. And Lindblad's hanging on nicely, very impressively in 6th place.
Meanwhile, that moment at turn 11 that George Russell wasn't overly happy about has been noted by race control. Not being investigated by the stewards as yet, but they might be taking a look at how Charles Leclerc defended. So stop-and-go penalty for Colapinto. He's basically got to come in, stop, and go back out again, not at his first pit stop. There's the notation for Charles Leclerc. There's the Ferrari, number 16, out in the lead. And on your screen, in 10th place now, Max Verstappen. He's got past Ollie Behrman, and he's now up into the top 10, and he is not far behind Pierre Gasly. Colapinto is in the pits, as you can see, with the stop clock on there, and that stop-and-go penalty will take him down the last 20th and last. Oscar Piastri didn't make it to the grid, crashed on the laps to the grids. Seemed like a torque spike that really caught him out, and Nico Hülkenberg, they wanted to try and start the car from the garage and then the pit lane, but that hasn't happened for Audi. Big shame for them on their debut in Formula One.
No further investigation for Leclerc's aggressive defence earlier on in the Grand Prix, but Russell's made his point, and now he's sort of collecting himself. If he had fillings in his teeth, they'd be rattling out, because that front, especially the higher your speed, of course, the more that tyre vibrates where you put the flat spot. The other problem you have is, once you flat spot a tyre badly like that, next time you lock the brakes up, it stops in the same place. It's more willing to stop in that place again. So he needs to be careful, but he's still got some good end of speed straight, hasn't he? End of straight speed.
He has. George Russell on the medium tyre. Bernie Collins, they'll be thinking now, do they shorten this stint if he has flat spotted it? Because he might start to lose pace a bit more quickly than they were thinking.
Yeah, Russell's already been on the radio and told them that he's going to really struggle with that front left tyre for whatever their current plan A was. So he's already told that to the pit wall. One other to look out for is Hadjar. Hadjar's been really struggling with the energy management since the beginning of the race, getting continuous from the pit wall about how to maybe do a slightly better job, and he's complaining, look, this isn't working, guys, I'm just sliding backwards from the group ahead. So he's fallen back, Verstappen's catching, lots still to happen.
There's a very slow Isaac Hadjar, and that looked like a lot of smoke coming from the rear of that Red Bull. Oh, and Isaac Hadjar,
Stop it there, son.
what has he got to do to catch a break in Australia? Didn't start the race last year.
So it'll be a safety car or a virtual safety car.
Come on! That's broken. Everything.
Right, this is in the pit stop window for a two-stop strategy. Right now, lap 12, virtual safety car has been deployed. You halve your deficit if you want to pit now, the loss that you would normally take. But yeah, and Lando Norris is being told to come in by his McLaren team. This is so heartbreaking for Isaac Hadjar. Was doing so well in his first race for Red Bull, but through no fault of his own, he is out. Ted Kravitz, down to you.
A little bit too early, maybe 1 or 2 laps early, but perfect otherwise for a stop. So Lando comes in. We see the Alpine and the Haas stop as well. Nothing from Max Verstappen as yet. He'll be coming round, and nothing for George Russell. I think he just missed it to George Russell. There's Carlos Sainz making a stop as well, but they have to stop now. It costs you 21 seconds to do a pit stop under normal conditions, and only 13 seconds to do a pit stop now. The Racing Bull's coming in as well. I'm expecting to see Russell and potentially Antonelli as well. I'll keep an eye on whether the Ferraris, I'm not seeing the Ferrari mechanics, Crofty, out in the box, but I'm expecting to see them in a moment.
No, top 4 still. Leclerc, Russell, Hamilton, Antonelli haven't stopped.
So a virtual safety car means you've got to keep to a delta time on your steering wheel, earliest time of arrival at various points around the circuit, so that they shouldn't gain or lose any track position or track distance, I should probably say. But yeah, and the reason, of course, that you lose just over half as much time under a virtual safety car is because everybody else is going much slower while you're in the pit lane.
Bernie Collins, will come to you in 2 seconds. Let's just have a listen on board with Isaac Hadjar.
Yeah, all the oily bits met each other there, I'm afraid.
That wasn't nice at all. He jumps clear of his car and his race is run. While we were watching that replay, Kimi Antonelli came in, George Russell came in, but the 2 Ferraris have stayed out. Leclerc leads Hamilton. So do Ferrari, Bernie, still think that we're going to get a virtual safety car for a bit longer, or are they going a different way to the rest?
Well, there's a lot of question on the pit walls out there as to have they done the right thing. Russell, as he went past the accident, gave the information to the pit wall, said this is not going to be quick, it's going to be a long VSC. That's good information for the pit wall, but they still chose to box the 2 Mercedes. Hamilton immediately, as he went past the pit entry being told to stay out, said, are we sure this is the right thing, guys? They might have another lap to change that decision if they want to. No disadvantage under the VSC for stopping on the 2nd lap, which is different to a full safety car.
Thanks, Bernie.
At least one of us should have come in.
He might have a point there, Martin.
Well, of course, they're going to have to stack the Ferraris as well now, so they'd have been better off doing one lap and one the next, but it depends how quickly they're just about wheeling that away, aren't they? So, and because the virtual safety car can end at any time, it's not a question of the safety car coming in, of course.
Yeah.
And so Lewis is absolutely right.
Marshals have to get back into position. That probably buys them another 10 seconds or so. It's going to be touch and go if Ferrari want to make a stop here. If I was Lewis Hamilton, I'd be saying, I want to come in, just because those around have done, and you want to be on the same tyres. But let's see what happens.
And what's he going to do? Does he come in the pit lane? No, he doesn't. Does he come in the pit lane? No,
he doesn't.
You know what they're bargaining on? Well, they think he's coming in. You know what they're bargaining on? Another safety car, aren't they? To get further into the race.
I think well, the idea was you're going to come in, and then someone's made the call to say, no, it's too tight. That VSC might end at any time. You guys have got a nice margin at the moment and some nice clear air. And if you'd have come in, we might have gone green. You might have lost that advantage. We're now
they would have got it. They would
resigned
have
to it.
VSC ending, but they would have got that pit stop done.
They would. In hindsight, yes, but I think it was caution over risk. Track's clear, and we can go racing. Watch the Ferraris just shoot away now with that small turbo, and they can get going.
Yeah, no, they've got to be really careful on these restarts with cold tyres and not up to temperature, not up to pressure, and all that power underneath their right foot. So they're learning so much, all at the same time.
So we've had about 3 laps of a virtual safety car there, Martin. Before Hadger's engine went, we had 7 changes of lead in the first 10 laps. If you're just joining us, seriously, should have set your alarm clocks in the UK and Ireland just a little bit earlier, because you've missed so much. But, you know, stick with us. There might be more to come yet.
This will all smooth out, and these regulations are a little bit fluid, but I'm pleased that those overtakes, the drivers still had to make it happen when they got there. So that bodes well, but we will be smoothing these regs out. I have no doubt about that.
Oh, we have an issue. Fernando Alonso being told to stop the car. Where is Fernando Alonso? He might be in the pits. There he is. I couldn't see him at first, but he's on our screen now. They weren't expecting to finish the race. Sadly, the end has come on lap 15 for Fernando Alonso, and that will be his 4th retirement from the Australian Grand Prix, his first one back in 2003.
So of the top 9, only the 2 Mercedes and Norris pitted. Lando Norris was going no fast, wasn't he, down in 7th place? Didn't appear to have a great amount of speed.
So he's on the hard tyre now, Lando Norris, after his pit stop. And that's Cadillac that he's passed. Interesting.
I'm not sure what that was telling us.
No, but it was nice to see.
Max Verstappen didn't pit either.
But he starts on the hards, didn't
he wants to get as much out of those tyres as he can.
So Leclerc leads, Hamilton 2nd, haven't pitted. Russell 3rd, has pitted. Lindblad 4th, hasn't pitted. Antonelli 5th, has pitted. Verstappen, Behrman, Portoletto haven't pitted. Lando Norris from 9th down to Carlos Sainz in 13th have pitted.
And Russell 10 seconds behind.
How are they only 10 seconds?
So far we are on plan. We are focusing on plan A.
Which was a 1-stop strategy, so we're not going to bring you in early to go into a 2-stop strategy. Colapinto has been into the pits, but I don't think he's changed tyres. Oh no, he has. He's gone hard. And then Stroll and Bottas have pitted. We're on board now with the Mercedes of Kimi Antonelli, chasing Arvid Lindblad and catching Arvid Lindblad and going wheel to wheel, and then ahead of Arvid Lindblad and into 4th place.
The Mercedes were guaranteed to be only 10 seconds behind, because you lose a bit over 10 in a virtual safety car pit stop, as Ted was pointing out, and they were ahead of him anyway by a second or 2, so it's virtually guaranteed. But Ferrari seem confident that they're doing the right thing. They'll stick with I mean, if there's another safety car, which is highly possible this afternoon, that there's many more safety cars actually, given the newness of these cars, but that'll play into Ferrari's hands a little bit. But you're leaving your destiny in somebody else's hands at that point.
I'm just wincing a bit watching Liam Lawson and Sergio Perez at the moment down the main straight. I think Lawson is like, can I get past him? Can I get past him? I'm going to try it into turn 3. They're banging wheels down at turn 3. Perez is still ahead of Liam Lawson. That's been a right old scrap, that has. These two These two, when they get on the track together, there is a bit of excitement that follows. Bernie Collins, he's on the hard tyre, Lawson, Perez on the medium, but those that have put the hard tyre on behind the virtual safety car, can they go to the end?
Well, this is the thing, Crofty, we just do not know. We think these tyres are holding on a little bit better than last year, but teams were concerned about greening, and the reason that we're seeing these different strategies, for example, between Lawson and Perez, Lawson has stopped, Perez has not. That's why Perez is ahead in that slower Cadillac.
Clockwise circuit, more rights than lefts. Max Verstappen's front left tyre looks horrible. Look at it, look at the dull bit. That is graining. Because of this, it's got 3 1/4 degrees of camber, the top leans in. You work the inside of the tyre, and that's exactly what we're seeing there for Max Verstappen. So the hard compound tyre, they can start to clean that graining up, but that doesn't look particularly good.
That's not good news for Mercedes if they're trying to go to the end and now on the hard tyre. We have some graphics, we have some battery graphics to show you when it's been deployed and when it's being recharged. While we watch those, Ted has words from the pit lane.
I think it's about right that Red Bull don't think that Mercedes can do the rest of the race, 45 laps on the hard tyre. So they're looking at a 2-stop. I think they were all open-minded on tyre strategies, Crofty. It was probably the least of their worries, wasn't it, given all the demands from the power unit. So I'm expecting to see Max Verstappen in on 5 or 10 laps time, and then we'll sort out the second stops later in this brilliant race.
Thanks, Ted. Now, Arvid Lindblad might be a bit vulnerable here because Max Verstappen has way more battery power than Arvid Lindblad, as overtake is enabled for him as well. So there's an extra half a megajoule from that, but his battery is more topped up even going into the detection. Into that corner, see when they put the brakes on how the battery tops up. Lindblad has just got a little bit more back than he needed. Verstappen using a bit more energy as he was gaining towards Lindblad down the main straight.
Russell massively faster than the 2 Ferraris on the previous lap and homing in on them. And
this is Lawson and Perez again.
It's amazing that one of them hasn't lost the barge board. They're rather massive on the side of the car that's so critical to the airflow. And this was where it's going to happen, if it's happening anywhere. And look, the wheels intertwined, and somehow neither of them went round.
There's no love lost between those two ever, is there?
That was a little return.
Cadillac, Valtteri Bottas. We've lost one Aussie before the start. We might have lost the honorary Aussie on lap 18 here.
Customer Ferrari engine in the back of that one at the moment, and Ferrari will be very happy about that indeed, as long as they don't close the entry of the pit lane.
I was just about to say that, Martin. Will they close the pit lane entry? Another virtual safety car. So Bert Meyerland is still waiting to get out on the track in his 500th Grand Prix in the actual safety car. Oh, that's such a shame for Valtteri Bottas and for Cadillac, the 167th constructor to enter into Formula One, the first full start-up team since Haas made their debut in 2016. The entry is not closed, so they're all going to barrel in. Lindblad, Verstappen, and then Ollie Behrman coming into the pits to make their first pit stop. Bortoletto's coming in too.
Lindblad's first ever pit stop in Formula One, and he was taking it carefully. And Max, what's happened there? They had to hold him briefly to find a gap for him to feed back into. But so Lindblad obviously treating the speed line a little bit cautiously, and Max was very angsty behind him, wanted to make the most of it.
Now, Lance Stroll is out on track in the Aston Martin. Charles Leclerc is right behind him currently. Stroll is a long way off the pace and about to be lapped. Don't know if you can lap a car under the VSC. I would have thought you actually can't.
You can't overtake, no.
I'm surprised Ferrari didn't come straight into the pits. I'd have thought the timing was absolutely right for them to make a pit stop, but maybe they just wanted, maybe they thought there was at least a couple of laps behind this VSC. So I tell you what, we'll use one on the old tyres and one on the new tyres. Bernie.
Yeah, I need to go back and track through it properly, but I think they were just too far ahead of the pit entry, so they didn't have the opportunity that others did.
I'm hearing their lead strategist, also known as Lewis Hamilton, is not at all happy about this. The pit lane entry is now closed, so Ferrari didn't see that one coming, did they?
Well, it's funny, you did. Do you want a job of lead strategist?
I'll tell you why I did, because Bernadette Collins, the strategist, told me, so I won't claim that for myself.
Yeah, she knows a thing or two. marshals on the track, so they have to close it now. This is why Valtteri Bottas, or what happened to Valtteri Bottas. And I think he was told to stop.
No, he didn't just trundle into the Aussie V8, the F2 supplementary pit lane.
He was told to stop immediately, and that's why he did comply with that. Now, this is bad news for Ferrari, who are leading this race, but haven't stopped yet. The VSC is ending. They need to start building up a bit of a gap here, if they can, as Max Verstappen is right on it behind Arvid Lindblad, who moves over to the left-hand side and slams that door shut in the face of the four-time world champion. Rookie against four-time world champion here.
Sister cars, a sister team, of course, but Lindblad, in his first Grand Prix, will not be intimidated by Max Verstappen. He's gone very wide in turn 3, but recovers it. So the 18-year-old is keeping his head under extreme pressure, and there's nothing between these two teams anymore where they say, just let my man through, would you please? It's not like there's a world championship anywhere near at stake at the moment.
Max Verstappen was Formula One world champion for what, 1,457 consecutive days, pulling off overtake after overtake at will sometimes, and he's going to try and pull off another overtake here on the young rookie Arvid Lindblad into turn 9. He's got his Red Bull ahead and up into 6th place. While that happens, Esteban Ocon goes past Gabriel Bortoleto and moves up into 9th place.
Ferrari better hope there's another virtual safety car, but Bernie said she thought they were too far past the pit entry to use that.
My tyres are still okay, did not box me the same time.
Lewis is thinking, how can I just gain a bit of an edge on my teammate here?
Do not box me at the same time. I do not want to sit in the pit lane waiting behind him, thank you very much. And then you've got to get all your restart sorted out with your turbo. So Lewis, and quite a bit of graining on his front left, but he's just saying, don't stack us. Don't stack us.
I think the thing is, Martin, everyone will have to stop again of the leading contenders. So whilst it might look like Ferrari have lost out a bit as Pierre Gasly right behind Esteban Ocon tries to squeeze down into turn 3, and Ocon gets hit by the front left tyre of the Alpine and then has to move off and out of the way. Gasly's up in the 10th place. But Ferrari, they need to stop. They haven't stopped yet. The other leading contenders are all going to have to stop again. It might be that they've not lost out if they can put a decent pace in these next few laps. And that could be a big if, looking at the pace of the two Mercedes.
And Antonelli flying along nicely, but we'll see how they settle down again. So the Ferraris in the 123s, Russell 122.6 on his fresher tyres. So you can't help but think that the Mercedes is the faster car in this race, but Ferrari have done well with getting track position, mostly because of the start.
Leclerc leads from Hamilton, 1.5 seconds, give or take. The gap, George Russell catching Lewis Hamilton in 5 laps time. He's going to be right on the tail of his former teammate. Kimi Antonelli runs in 4th, Lando Norris 5th, and Max Verstappen up to 6th after starting 20th on the grid. Arvid Lindblad is 7th and Ollie Bearman is 8th, and there are 5 British drivers in this race. Currently, the 5 British drivers are all in the top 8. Apologies to the 14 other nationalities in this race, but let's fly the Union flag there.
One of them, the reigning world champion, hasn't got any speed. Lando Norris afternoon. Max Verstappen's catching him very quickly in every sector of the lap. So for some reason, and we haven't really seen any lightning pace from Norris and his McLaren today.
I just wonder as well, with what happened to Oscar Piastri on the laps to the grid, have McLaren had to be a bit cautious in this race to try and prevent anything like that happening to Lando in the race? He's the only McLaren in it, and it's, you want to get to the checker flag, but...
You do, but no, I think it was a very specific thing, wasn't it, with Piastri going to the grid. So, yeah, Leclerc and Hamilton then running still in the mid-23s. Two Mercedes in the late 1:22s, and then a big gap to Norris in the late 1:23s. So he's done a 23.6, his best lap of the race now, Lando Norris, but it's still off the pace. So we'll see how the rest of the afternoon unfolds. Ollie Bearman is right on the back of Arvid Lindblad as well now.
Ollie Bearman in his second full season in Formula One, and having a much better Australian Grand Prix than he had down here in Albert Park last year, where he didn't take part in qualifying. Started from the pit lane, only finished 14th in the race. Oscar Piastri speaking to the media. We'll hear from him with Rachel Brooks in a short while. He'll be absolutely devastated, I'm sure, with what's happened, but he'll pick himself up, go to China and try again. Under investigation, Sergio Perez for forcing another driver off the track with Liam Lawson. Stewards having a little look at that one. Gap in the front, 1.7 seconds between Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, make that 1.6 as Lewis crosses the line. The gap back to George Russell, 4.1 seconds. Give it another 3 laps. The clever computer says he'll be right on the tail of Lewis Hamilton. Bernie Collins, to you.
Yeah, just going to come in quickly on what you said there about Lando Norris. His pace looking a little bit off. They have been discussing how he can improve that pace, and he's just been told directly from the pit wall, I know you're worried about the front left. Hush a little bit more, we're making this a 2-stop. So it seems like Norris was a bit unsure how much management he needed to do with that front left tyre, as we heard Martin describe earlier for Verstappen's car, and now he's been told we're committed to the 2-stop, let's push on this tyre a little bit more.
And he responds with his fastest lap of the race. Thanks, Bernie.
Yeah, well, that makes sense, that, but he's still not in the 122s like the Mercedes, where he needs to be. So Ferrari then, because they're deploying and regenerating, obviously in exactly the same way, they're unsurprisingly, they're circulating at a very consistent distance with the package they've got, and they obviously now want to try to get these tyres somewhat further into the race. But Hamilton's front looks ugly. His front left tyre, you can see that sort of dark stripe on it as he comes down the pit straight now, his front left.
It's not pretty, is it? And he was 0.7 of a second slower than Charles Leclerc on lap 24. Charles Leclerc leading this race, trying to do something that no one has ever done in the hybrid era here in Albert Park, and that's win this Grand Prix from outside the top 3 on the grid. He started 4th in this race. And the 1, 2, 3 on this grid today was George Russell, Kimi Antonelli and Isaac Hadjar. Hadjar's out the race, so still the 1, 2, 3 have never finished in that order in an Albert Park F1 race. This is Pierre Gasly and his battle with Esteban Ocon.
Plenty of history between those two, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Here at Albert Park, where they, as teammates, crashed into each other and were out of the race and ruined what would have been a sensational finish for them that day. They're under investigation by the stewards. Esteban Ocon's been noted for driving unnecessarily slowly, and that was the box shout from Ferrari to your race leader, Charles Leclerc.
Box and stop, box and stop. It is the international phrase for we want to see you in the pit lane, please. Ted is down there, I know, as Charles Leclerc navigates his way into what's quite a long entry before he gets to the speed limit line, and there it is, and take it away, Ted.
But they've given away 10 seconds of race time. Ferrari have given away race time that they could have had by stopping now. Yes, it's onto the hard tyres. Yes, this is target lap for a one-stopper going medium to hard, but they've just given away loads of lap time to Mercedes. We'll see what happens to Lewis Hamilton. We'll be praying for a VSC. I don't know whether he's going to get it. Where he might get it, Martin, is that the Aston has rejoined the race. Fernando Alonso has had a nice little time in the pits. He's got the feeling back in his hands and has rejoined the race.
Yeah.
How many laps down? 10 laps down?
Yeah, it still says on our timing screen that he's in the pits, but you're right. I can see him now out on the track.
Well, he passed me. I'm absolutely sure he's rejoined. He's on the soft tyres. And well done to Lance Stroll for making it past the 15 laps. In fact, we're now 25 laps where he felt he couldn't continue because of the vibrations, causing nerve damage to his fingers.
Well, look, there's 4 drivers definitely out of this race. If they can finish Aston Martin, that might be very, very important later on in the season. Lewis Hamilton yet to pit. Don't forget, of course, Ferrari sticking to their guns and the strategy that they wanted going into this race. And Russell and Antonelli are still going to have to pit again. And if you haven't got the pace of the Mercedes, and Hamilton's carrying on again, if you can't beat Mercedes pace for pace throughout the race, you've got to try a different strategy.
You have, but it feels like a mistake, doesn't it? Because they're now, if Mercedes have got to pit again, which we expect they will, they'll have much fresher tyres at the end of the Grand Prix anyway. So there's the grainy you can see on his front tyre. Lewis was really wrestling that car on the previous lap. I was somewhat surprised that he didn't come in to the pit lane. But what he's trying to do is get a tyre offset against his teammate. If he can get 2 or 3 laps further on these, he'll have fresher tyres and a better chance of getting to the end than his teammate Charles Leclerc.
Bertie Collins.
Yes, and just as that graphic shows there, the difference between the Ferrari and the Mercedes strategy. Mercedes gained those 10 seconds, as Ted said, during the first VSC, and what they're hoping for is that their second pit stop, if they gain a second, manage to get another VSC or another safety car, they'll save that time again, and that's what they're banking on this Australian Grand Prix, is the uncertainty that we know is coming with lots of retirements that we're seeing throughout it. So the Mercedes is, if they get another safety car, will have saved a full pit loss effectively and have quicker tyres for the stints in between.
Aston Martin decided to bring Fernando Alonso back into the garage after making some adjustments to their car. That's why he's rejoined the race. And here's the race for the lead. Lewis Hamilton hasn't pitted yet. Lap 27 of 58, and he's got a gap of about 9/10 of a second to George Russell. Russell has pitted. Every single driver has been into the pits in this race other than Lewis Hamilton, two-time winner here in Albert Park. And whilst we watch this battle, Sergio Perez has just been noted for ignoring blue flags. I know he's been away from a year, Martin, but he must remember the blue flags.
Yeah, so he's not been letting the leaders through. He doesn't seem very happy. He didn't seem happy when I spoke to him on the grid either, did he, Sergio Perez? But we're approaching half distance, and we've still got 8, as Lance Stroll picks the Aston Martin, we've still got 18 runners out on the track. Alonso still hasn't got past Bottas yet in terms of laps.
George Russell hasn't got past Lewis Hamilton yet, but it's coming. It really is coming, and there's a gap on the inside. Russell's going to take it. George Russell retakes the lead of the Australian Grand Prix. It's another Ferrari he's had to overtake, not Charles Leclerc this time. He's pitted and he's down in 4th. George Russell breezes past Lewis Hamilton, who's been running those tyres now for 27 laps. And let's see what he can do now, out in front and not under pressure from a car right up his gearbox.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily about battery. That is, as Lewis Hamilton does peel into the pit lane, that is just getting much better drive, using 1,000 horsepower off the corner, getting much better drive out of the corner with traction.
Terrible. 9 laps he's had those mediums on for. Hard tyre for Lewis Hamilton. Listen how he has to keep the revs so high when he's in that pit box, and he comes out behind his teammate Charles Leclerc. But Charles Leclerc has been running his hard tyre 3 laps, so Lewis has what is called a 3-lap offset strategy.
Okay, I think the one stop is viable.
Copy that.
If there's anyone who can do it, it's George Russell, Martin.
Yeah, the tyre whisperer when he needs to, isn't he? And because they don't have to... Remember, he got disqualified in Spa. He got disqualified in Spa because he won the race, but he basically used the tyres for twice as long as anybody thought they could. But that doesn't matter anymore because the car is weighed, and then the weight of 4 tyres is added to it. So it doesn't. That's not a concern if you wear your tyres thin.
724 kilos plus the mass of the tyres. You're right. Arvid Lindblad with the lock up there. Ollie Bearman will see that and think, oh, goody. Might just be on for a little overtake coming up. Alex Albon is behind his teammate Carlos Sainz, Williams 12th and 13th currently. And I reckon it's about 44 laps that George Russell's got to put in, maybe 42 laps that he's got to put in to go to the end of this race on the tyres that he's currently running. So that is a whisper and a half, that is.
We'll see what his pace is like. Now the Ferraris are in the 22s and George is in the 1-minute 23s. He has just passed Colapinto, but traffic, actually the 18 runners are nicely spread out around the track to an extent at the moment. So picking off the back markers, not too much of a problem.
Okay, Virginia Water, the birthplace of Arvid Lindblad. Chelmsford, the birthplace of Ollie Bearman. It's Surrey against Essex. Out on the track currently, rookie against, Well, driver going into his 28th Grand Prix. Arvid Lindblad, I think, has done really, really well so far this weekend. He led his teammate Liam Lawson for every session, practice and qualifying, right up until the last lap in Q3. But he's now racing. He did more laps than anyone else in Bahrain in the second test. He can cope with the demands of these cars, but under racing conditions, it's different.
Super impressive. And he's coped with with Verstappen in his mirrors. He's coped with the start, the first lap, and he's just done an outstanding job. But Bernie has more news for us.
Yeah, I was just going to come in quickly on the Ferrari v Mercedes race, how it stands at the minute. At the moment, Russell would have a safety car window over the two Ferraris, but that's not going to last for long, because the two Ferraris are currently around 0.5 of a second quicker a lap with that much fresher hard tyre, and that's what they're banking on. They can close that safety car window and force the Mercedes into another pit stop, emerge behind under a safety car. So they're hoping that tyre offset will bring them good.
Just explain for our audience what a safety car window is.
Exactly, sorry Martin. So a safety car window is the gap where would you come out on track if there was a safety car. We reckon that gap is around 10 seconds. So you can see there on the left hand side between the leader and Charles Leclerc is 14.4 seconds. So at the moment Russell would stop and come out ahead of Charles Leclerc. However, if that drops below 10, at that point under a safety car, Russell would emerge behind Charles Leclerc, and they are pushing now, half a second a lap, get that safety car window closed.
Meanwhile, from the informative to the ridiculous, have you noticed that Ollie Bearman has changed the bear on his helmet just for Australia? And we've got a little koala sat there in his eucalyptus tree just for Australia. Well done to the Bearman for that. Lando Norris won last year from pole position, 12 months on for the defending champion. It's been a very different Australian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen is right on his tail now, and it's getting a bit windy for George Russell. Gusts of up to 25 kph. We're quite near Port Phillip Bay, and the wind comes off the sea here, Martin. That could be something to take into consideration.
Lando's front left looks horrible. Absolutely horrible now. So he is well over a pit stop behind George Russell. So I think somewhat confirming McLaren struggling for pace. But we're going to see every weekend we go Formula 1 racing. We're going to see updates, developments, aren't we? It's going to be rapid the first half of the season in particular.
There's a lot to learn for the teams going into this race. So much to learn going into next week. Even more to learn on a different track too. And it's a sprint weekend. It's a sleep deprivation zone if you are back in the UK and Ireland. And hopefully it's been well worth the early alarm call on this Sunday morning. Lap 32 of 58, George Russell, who won the only two Grand Prix he led last season in Canada and Singapore, is back in the lead and 6 seconds clear of his teammate Kimi Antonelli.
We should talk about Bortoletto in the Audi in 9th. Decent lap times as well in the World Championship points at the moment. So whilst Nico Hülkenberg sadly has long retired, the Audi in its first Grand Prix is in the points.
Gary Barlow in the McLaren garage, and Norris just needing a little patience so far in 2026.
Maybe we're thinking of going to the end, but let us know what you think about tyres.
That's gonna be brave.
Okay, copy, we'll monitor.
Well, fortune favours the brave.
Yeah, George feels it's doable. Kimi's not quite so sure. But yeah, I mean, if George pitted now, he'd come out just behind Lewis Hamilton. But of course, how long is it since Hamilton pitted?
Lewis Hamilton has been running his tyres for 4 laps.
Yeah, not exactly worn out, are they? So
they're bang on a one-stop strategy.
Yeah.
Ferrari, aren't they?
Could you do 26 laps on a medium?
No, not at this rate, because I just throw the tyres after 10.
That's not even a maybe from Lando Norris, and I like that. It's affirmative. No, not going to happen. You're going to have to think of something else. Meanwhile, Max Verstappen chasing down Lando Norris. Got a bit more battery deployment on this section towards turn 11 at his disposal. Lando Norris has drained his battery, and Max can gain a lot of ground behind him going into that corner. Let's see, though, out of it, if Lando Norris can stick ahead. And while we watch this battle, Ted's got some news.
So if there are going to be some second stops, then that's going to be in about 3 or 4 laps time. That's the premium time, that's the spot on lap. And I can see some action down here in various pit garages, people thinking about it. Crofty, do interrupt if the old Norris-Verstappen rivalry is going to be revisited. Let me tell you about Pierre Gasly, going really well in the Alpine. Alpine have not had a good weekend so far.
Oh, virtual safety car, Ted. And I think we got some debris on the track. And that's why we've got a VSC.
Okay.
Turn 8, Marshals are just collecting a piece of carbon fibre that's on the outside.
No, you can't put people out there. You cannot put people out there.
Not even under. Oh, well, they have. Well done, Kimi Antonelli, for staying way to the left, and Fernando Alonso with Lance Stroll too.
If this lasts, this is a gift for Mercedes.
I think it's going to end quickly. George Russell's coming to turn 11. The debris came from Sergio Perez, Cadillac.
Yeah, it was the barge wall we were talking about earlier on that eventually made a bid for freedom.
Ted, VSC is ending, and George Russell hasn't made it to the pit lane yet.
Well, that was why I said you can't put people out there, because how blind that corner is.
Yeah.
Look how blind, and the drivers are looking inside the car a lot, making adjustments to the, especially in VSC conditions. Anyway,
Max Verstappen, we'll come back to you in 2 seconds, Ted. Max Verstappen here is right on the tail of Lando Norris. Thought about a late break into turn 11 for just 1 split second. Nothing doing. Swooping now into turn 12 we go. Verstappen, who started this race in 20th, looking for the top 5 currently as Lando Norris comes in to make his second pit stop in this race. His tyres had gone. No point continuing the battle with Max Verstappen. It wasn't one that they felt he was going to win. So now a pit stop. And well, here's McLaren. 1.8, 1.9 seconds they were doing in previous years for pit stops. There go the revs. And out he goes in 2026. Let's get the stopwatch on the stationary time. 2.5 seconds for Lando Norris. And it looked really slick.
it did. The wheels and tyres are a little bit smaller and lighter, of course, which should help that process. So when they really get up to speed, I'd expect them to be under 2 seconds again later this year, all teams.
Ted, let's go back to you.
Yeah, so the people who did pit along with Lando Norris, both Williams and Sainz had a very slow pit stop. He's having enough troubles as it is, saying on the radio he can't race like this. I wonder if he was told earlier when he was right behind his teammate Alex Albon to hold station. They were pretty slow anyway, the Williams, but now he's dropped a couple of positions, has Carlos Sainz. Lawson, I think, has overtaken him, Crofty, in the racing.
Yes, he has. Fernando Alonso has come back into the pits again. Whether he comes out, we shall see. And we're on lap 36 of 58. There's your strategy so far. There's your race leader and tyre whisperer, George Russell, trying to go to the end on a set of tyres, a set of hard compound tyres, to see if he can win this race and put in 46 laps on them.
That's a gamble. That is a gamble now, because unless they can get the luxury of another safety car pit stop, they've got to go a long way, and the pendulum's swinging back a little bit towards Ferrari here.
A 1:23.0 from Russell on the previous lap, a 1:23.5 for Leclerc, 1:23.3 for Hamilton. But any gains that Russell makes now are going to be offset by Ferrari having much fresher tyres towards the end of this race. Verstappen, you feel, is going to have to pit again as well. He's on 17-lap-old medium tyres. They're committed to a two-stopper, but that front left to George Russell, that looks to be graining quite significantly.
Unless he can burn through that, but yeah, that's a tall order for him to do that. And if he's in the 22s now, though, again. But if you can't make it, you've got to pit time and then leave yourself not enough laps on the fresh tyres to compensate for a pit stop. So if George stopped now, he'd come out side by side with Lewis Hamilton, but behind Antonelli, and who we assume has to stop again as well. Actually, both Mercs are now into the 22s. Leclerc's just had a scruffy lap, a 1:24.3. And looking at the driver tracker, does not appear to have passed anybody or had to get through traffic.
I think he was trying to lap Franco Colapinto, and that's what cost him a little bit of time. Fernando Alonso's out of the race to conserve components. Aston Martin have retired the Spanish driver from the Australian Grand Prix. Lindblad, Bearman, Norris, 3 British drivers. 6th, 7th and 8th, Norris catching them at a rate of knots. Ollie Bearman hasn't been able to get up close to Arvid Lindblad in the Racing Bulls. I think Lando Norris, after his second pit stop, should make light work of this, you would have thought.
It was moving around. We're hearing Lance Stroll is retiring as well, but the McLaren moving around under acceleration. But I guess what Lando's got to be sure he doesn't do on the brand new tyres is actually just open the surface up straight away.
Bernie Collins, what you got for us?
Yeah, I was just going to say, now is a big moment of decision for Russell out in front leading this race. The 1 or 2 stop, they need to make a call on it quickly. The reason being, Lewis Hamilton in P4 is 22.3 seconds behind, and the pit window is
23 seconds.
20-ish, I was going to go with, but
I was allowing for a slow pit stop.
Oh, well, yeah. So I think that Lewis has just been released from a lot of cars with blue flags. So if Russell wants to cover Lewis, not under a safety car, it probably needs to be in the next lap or 2. How confident are they in either a 1-stop working from here or another safety car?
Or a bigger tyre offset and leave it a few laps and get an overtake done? What would you do, Martin?
I think they're going to try and get to the end, and while they're still lapping, both of them faster than both Ferraris, just at the moment, they're fine. But if they start losing lap time, as Norris sails past Bearman down the back straight with some battery deployment, yeah, it'll spin on its head. That's why I'm saying I think the pendulum has swung back towards Ferrari's favour.
Lawson's just got past Colapinto. Don't forget, Russell got past Hamilton with that big tyre offset. We might see it swing around. This is Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly. As we said, round here, these two leave nothing in the locker. And getting a nice slipstream. And then when the Alpine just starts recharging the battery, then Ocon decides that's the moment to not think about recharging and to think about overtaking, because he could deploy that little bit extra. That's the sort of tactics you're going to have to employ in 2026. Sainz is catching Colapinto. Leclerc's just set a fastest lap of the race. Norris is now after Lindblad.
Yeah, Ferrari decided to do is go and put Mercedes under pressure, force them into doing something they may not want to do, pushing these tyres harder or pitting.
There goes Lando Norris pulling out from behind Arvid Lindblad, and he is back ahead of the Racing Bulls. He's behind Max Verstappen. He's lapping significantly quicker than Max Verstappen. He's racing Max Verstappen in this race currently. And that is Gabriel Bortoleto getting past Esteban Ocon and up into 10th place. So we've got all the new rules and regs, and the way that we go racing is very different. We've got a tyre offset, a pit set strategy offset as well, combining, Martin, to give us one of the more interesting Australian Grand Prix without the aid of rain we've had for a while.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that, because the drivers are having to get the move done themselves. The battery's putting them there, and then they're having to sort it out when they get there, and they're having to be quite feisty with their defence as well. So and Hamilton now in the mid-22s as well, new fastest lap. So yeah, they've been told, okay, we've got to now go and force Mercedes to either pit or push the tyres harder than they want to.
Bernie Collins just said to me, the drivers are doing this all by themselves, not with the aid of strategists. Get rid of the strategists. That's what we need in Formula One. Isn't that right, Bernie? Is that what you said?
Let's wait to see how the Mercedes-Ferrari plays out at the end of this race before we say that, Crofton.
I said that Ferrari should stay out. I said they shouldn't have a pit stop. Oh, that was Ollie Bearman behind Arvid Lindblad. He left that a little bit late, didn't he? Wowzers. Now watch the exit from the corner, because he's used up a lot of battery, has Ollie Bearman there. Lindblad's come back at him. Behrman's got the inside line, and he's just about held on to that 7th place. So get the overtake done, prepare to defend, and then have to start accelerating out the corner. And while that's going on, Sainz and Colapinto are having an equally absorbing and close-fought scrap over 14th place.
These youngsters that have come through F3 and F2, they're bandits. They'll have a go at overtaking anywhere, anyhow, and they don't mind.
Give me the sweets, says Arvid Lindblad. Oh, that's sweet, isn't it? Round the outside at turn 8, but into the corner. Under braking goes Ollie Behrman. Wow, that was really rapid through 9 and 10. But now he's having to start recharging really, really early, and that then allows Lindblad to come back at him. So just think, what the Lord giveth, he taketh away when it comes to battery usage here. And if you can understand that, you've got a prayer of getting an overtake done.
Yeah, I'll be a little bit trigger happy on the throttle. We saw coming out of a couple of turns as well. He needs to just
I'm not going to say what's going to happen, but not at the moment.
Thank you very much indeed.
Ferrari keeping them on the toes there, Mercedes. They're definitely keeping the gap pretty much identical. They're a long way ahead then of Norris and Verstappen. So they'll be fighting over 5th place. You've got to assume Verstappen will quite easily repass Norris given the fresh tyres, but we'll keep an eye on that. But it's really tense at the front, and if Mercedes start to hit the cliff, start losing grip on those tyres, Ferrari will be all over them.
They're making inroads, slowly but surely. This battle for 10th is not done. The battle for 14th has not played out either. Sergio Perez is, I don't think he's got much use of his wing mirror at the moment after losing that bit of barge board, and he's really struggling out on the track. And Stroll, Alonso, Bottas, Hadjar, Piastri and Hulkenberg all out. Piastri on the lap to the grid. If you weren't with us as the cars left the pit lane for the first time, I had a spike of torque and it spat him out across the track towards the wall on the grass verge and into the daisies, and that was the end of Oscar Piastri's Australian Grand Prix. Absolute heartbreak for him. Isaac Hadjar had an engine failure to equal heartbreak and Nico Hulkenberg didn't even get going. So some tales of woe from 3 at least of those that have not made it to the checkered flag so far.
Car hitting the ground there. So just to remind you, Russell and Antonelli are 31 laps into these tyres already, and Leclerc 17 into his, and Hamilton just 14. We saw him getting that offset. So they're sitting there ready, and but Russell and Antonelli can still pump in late 1 minute 22s, but Hamilton again in the mid 22s and beginning to edge up towards Charles Leclerc too.
Laura Muller, race engineer for Esteban Ocon, keeping him on the straight and narrow and keeping him abreast of exactly what he needs to try and get back past Pierre Gasly and up into the points once more. Laura Muller and Hannah Schmitz, the recipients of a brilliant honour on this International Women's Day. Corner 6, turn 6, in her corner for forever and ever, and the first 2 recipients to have a corner named after them here at Albert Park on, as I say, International Women's Day. Max Verstappen is the fastest man on track. Just looking at where the cars are all spread, George Russell is soon going to be coming up behind that Gasly-Ocon battle. And I just wonder if they are thinking of pitting George Russell, do they need to do it, Mercedes, kind of now before he catches them and loses even more time, potentially, Martin, with the blue flags?
Well, if they do that, he's going to have to pass both Ferraris at the end, towards the end of the race. So they should get out, but it's always risky when 2 drivers are really fighting each other. A, they're reluctant to lose any time, and B, they don't always immediately recognise the blue flags if they're focused on each other, especially if they're very close together.
Yeah, while we just debate that one, Marcus Dudley has just been on the team radio to George Russell to say, we are going to the end. Stand by for action then. Well, the Ferraris are going to have to pick up some pace here.
Yeah, they've got a lot of data off the car, of course, including the tyre, a huge amount of data about the tyres. So it's not the driver knows what it feels like, but they've got enough knowledge of temperature and how that all relates to tyre wear across the surface. So they're saying that from a position of knowledge rather than a bit of a gung-ho matter.
So, Russell and Antonelli. You'd imagine Antonelli going to the end too.
And Verstappen is pushing hard. He knows now's his best chance on you.
No reply that we hear from Lando Norris on the medium tyre. It has been for 10 laps. Max Verstappen back on the hard tyre. They say 2 sets of hard tyres at Red Bull, which might have been a very good decision, and really catching Lando Norris now.
I don't think Lando will have an answer, to be honest, when he gets there, but we're about to find out. Hamilton then still doing personal bests in the mid 1:22s, and the gap down to just 4 seconds to Leclerc now. He's really bringing himself into play, Lewis Hamilton, and if the Mercs can get to the end and carry this kind of speed, George Russell's just had a 23.4, but that includes lapping one car with lapping 2 cars actually, so that's why George is a little bit steady. In fact, it's not a bad lap considering he just got past 2 cars.
Into turn 1 we go. Norris ahead of Verstappen, battling for 5th and for 6th. As you can see how the gap has been closing over the last 3 laps with Max Verstappen since he made that pit stop. Sergio Perez has just come in for another pit stop at Cadillac, their first race in Formula 1. They've been simulating races all of last season back at the factory in Silverstone. This time they're doing it for real. They've got 1 car left after Valtteri Bottas was told to stop just before the pit lane. We can get focusing on Gasly and Ocon once again. As Ocon's catching Pierre Gasly, just taking his time, biding his time, cooling off his tyres a little bit, now going for it once more.
But it matters. It's for the final World Championship point at the moment in 10th place. That will be critical for both of those teams.
Yeah, and we've been talking about that Colapinto Sainz fight. Well, Lando Norris and Max Verstappen are about to get a real close-up ringside seat for that one, because they're right on their tail and maybe about to lap them. Bernie Collins, to you.
Yeah, just going to come in quickly, Crofty. Lewis Hamilton's actually lapping a little bit quicker than Charles Leclerc, somewhere between 2 to 5 tenths a lap quicker consistently. So when he gets to Leclerc, now they're both in free air, when he gets there, is Lewis Hamilton the best chance of chasing down these Mercedes? And what will Ferrari do? Hopefully they're already discussing it.
Carlos Sainz came into the pits, so that was the end of a close-up ringside seat for those two, for Norris and Verstappen, with Colapinto and Sainz. Yeah, what's the lap times? 1:23.7, George Russell last lap. 1:23.0, Antonelli, Leclerc and Hamilton in the high 1:22s. Ted, let's go down to you.
So Sainz had a damaged front wing. I don't know if we saw that, Crofty, or whether there's any Williams debris. But with these front wings now being attached with various hydraulic and electric lines going in so that they can drop the front wing up and down again with a link, it took them about 15 to 20 seconds to change that front wing of Carlos Sainz. So this year, with those front wings and the complexity, having to get the connectors all lined up, there really is much more of a penalty if you have a clonk out. Need to come and box and change your front wing like Carlos Sainz there. What a miserable weekend. How much was hoped for Williams for this weekend. Carlos Sainz is going to rejoin second last. Sergio Perez is already a couple of laps down. Thanks, Tim.
Antonelli having a horrible lap. He's passed Ocon, but he still hasn't got past Gasly yet, and he's done that now. But I think he'll be falling back. He lost 3/10 in the first sector to Russell. Little sector, not too bad actually, but then, of course, the Ferraris have got to get past, including Sainz as well now. Sainz came out of the pits behind the two Mercedes, so they didn't have to lap him.
Max Verstappen, that 2 car lengths between himself and Lando Norris here. I think you were right, Martin. Lando's not really got anything to fight Max Verstappen with. Red Bull were targeting top 8 finish for Max Verstappen, given that the 4 big teams, as it were, the top 4 teams had a pace advantage over the rest. From 20th on the grid, a 5th place finish for Max will be, I think, about cause for a ripple of applause, but they'll be worried about that power unit issue that happened to Isaac Hadjar and why he had to retire from this race a long time ago.
So Lando's doing 22.7s now, which is quicker than all 4 drivers in front of him on the last lap round. So he's definitely, now the fuel load's gone down, and with the fresher tyres, and he's holding Max at bay better than I perhaps feared he would.
So we're into the last 10 laps of this race. George Russell set for a 6th career race victory. Look how leery that Red Bull was on the exit of the final turn. Mercedes set for a 1-2 finish, and their first 1-2 finish without Lewis Hamilton involved since 1955.
Would that be Fangio and Moss, would it?
Certainly would. Well remembered, sir. It's incredible. 61st 1-2 finish in total, and only their 3rd since the start of 2020. If there's one thing I am definitely sure of this weekend, Mercedes are very glad to say bye-bye and auf Wiedersehen to the ground effect regulations that they never really enjoyed very much. We've still got a few laps to go.
This is encouraging for Mercedes that with the 9 laps to go, including this one, they're still pumping in 1:22.
If you're Max Verstappen, do you fancy a little late dive on the brakes here to try and get past Lando Norris, who's already harvesting energy long before they get to the corner? Verstappen didn't fancy on that occasion a chance to dive down the inside, but he's gaining and thinking to himself, where can I find a way past here? Where can I use my skill, my tactics, my battery, and my foot flat to the floor to try and get this top 5 finish? He's the fastest man on the track towards the end of this. What a different race it could have been had he not had that issue into turn 1 yesterday that saw him out in Q1, and an incident the team was still investigating to find out exactly what did go wrong.
Yeah, because they 2 stopped and the 4 ahead of them have only 1 stopped, they're 53 seconds off the lead now, Norris, and 54 for Verstappen. That's a turnaround from the last couple of seasons, isn't it?
It certainly is. Arvid Lindblad being told that the boost is not available to him. That's going to cost him a lot of horsepower. And currently in 8th place with Gabriel Bortoleto behind him. Last lap, Bortoleto was about a 10th of a second slower, but I think the boost isn't available. It's come on this particular lap. That 51 of 58. We've lost Alonso, Bottas, Hadjar, Piastri and Hulkenberg. Stroll is back out, 12 laps down. He's back out on the track. The gap between Russell and Leclerc, 15 seconds. The gap between Russell and Hamilton, 18 seconds. Ferrari haven't got the pace of the Mercedes, and they're not making inroads. In fact, just looking at where the 2 Ferraris are, they're trying now to lap Ocon and Gasly with Charles Leclerc, and that might be costing him just a little bit of time. Lando keeps banging in, quick lap after quick lap, and he's keeping Max Verstappen very much at bay here.
Hamilton just 3.2 behind Charles Leclerc now, so is edging ever closer to him. That's to Lando Norris. So Max's tyre is just 9 laps old. Lando's, the medium's, 16 laps old. Compare that, and it's ominous because Mercedes out front have done 38 laps on their tyres now, and they're all lapping around the same lap time. So it just shows you how good that Mercedes is.
Max Verstappen's going to have to, he's got to try something here to get past Lando Norris, and maybe go a bit gung-ho with that boost to give him that extra pace and try and put Lando under pressure.
You can see how much these drivers have learned during this Grand Prix to how to manage these new power units, because they're, you know, they're just looking much more normalised, isn't it, than the opening few laps. Now they're beginning to work out where they need to charge, where they need to deploy, and you've still got to carry the speed. You've still got to ace the braking, and they're so hard to drive, these cars, because you turn up into corners at very dissimilar speeds.
Yeah.
You know, you really can be 30 miles an hour faster.
7 laps to go. Keep pushing. Doing well. Yeah, leave it to me. Thanks.
Hasn't had a podium, Lewis Hamilton, here in Australia since 2023. He's 1 place off the podium currently. Zak Brown watching, tensely I'm sure, from the McLaren pit wall here. Lando's doing a decent job of keeping Max at bay, Zak, but Max is getting that bit closer, I think, here.
Yeah, Lando's doing a great job. This is going to be tough, I'm not sure, but you know who I'm cheering for.
So Lando seems to sort of found much more of a rhythm in the second half of the race, and sort of race leading pace. I know he's got fresher tyres, but he seems to have found something or learned something. Or was he carrying an issue?
No issue. I think we're learning as we're going here on all this deployment and where to recharge. So he's doing a great job. 5 to go, but Max looks like he's sizing him up.
And have you had a chance to speak to Oscar since he got back to the pits?
Yeah, I did very briefly before the start of the race. He's obviously bummed out. Told him to shake it off. We got another race coming up, and disappointed for him and the team, but 23 more to go.
Can you give us any indication of what happened? Was it a combination of cold tyres, driver error, spike in torque? What was the situation, Zak?
We didn't see anything on the data. I think there was a spike in the torque, and of course your tires aren't fully up to speed, so we got to do a full download with him and look at the data, but that would maybe be our early guess.
Thanks ever so much, Zak. I'll let you get back to watching the battle unfold. I think Max has used that boost, and he is trying to force Lando to use the boost himself in retaliation and take him to a place he might not want to be.
Yeah, we haven't got the data, unfortunately, for these two, but that's the turn 6 through 7 now, but where you need your battery as high. And look at that, how much Lando's pulled out by obviously charging nicely through the slower corners, and he's given himself a bit of breathing space for now.
Meanwhile, out in front, George Russell is threading his way through some of the back markers, or those on the fringes of the points, and that's given Kimi Antonelli a chance just to close the gap a little bit. 4.5 seconds just under now for him. And if Antonelli can get through Bortoleto, Colapinto nice and quickly, he might be within striking distance in the last couple of laps. Lindblad and Behrman, I think, are the next ones for George Russell to get past, and he has just done that. Meanwhile, on board with Liam Lawson on the soft compound tyre, he's catching Alex Albon as Lando Norris putting a respectable distance for himself and his heartbeat, I think, between himself and Max Verstappen.
Yeah, he just gained 0.8 of a second in the previous lap, and then a 1:22.3. That it's really settling down actually for Norris and the McLaren, but they are on fresher tyres.
Just set the fastest final sector of this race so far. Just watching as well the timing screen and the action on the track. George Russell, I would imagine, has got into a nice, cool rhythm and a decent zone now. The threat that might have been coming at him from Ferrari, who stopped that much later with their pit stop, seems to have dissipated now. He's got a Mercedes car that's giving him the power, and he's got the talent that's going to take him on to get the glory here, I think.
And of course, Ferrari stopped under green flag conditions, didn't they? So they took the full pit stop penalty, and Mercedes have punished them hard for that.
Yeah, and even if they'd have taken it under a VSC, take off 10 seconds, they'd still be behind Antonelli, they'd still be behind Russell, but it might have they might have been that much closer, but they haven't got the answers to Mercedes here at a track that will suit this car. It's a power track, and if you've got the best power unit, then you should be making these sort of results.
Yeah, but what they gave up was track position. They lost control of the race. That's the critical thing with Ferrari's sort of tactics, as it were. Hamilton just 2.5, 2.3 saying up there now behind Leclerc. He'll be right on Leclerc's tail, won't he? But probably not close enough as we home in on these final laps.
And the final lap, Martin, we've been talking about the battery and the boost and the overtake mode. You can drain that down to 0 to the checkered flag. So on the final lap, anything goes, right? Just go and raid the sweet shop and take as many chocolates as you want out of it and leave yourself with nothing when you cross the line. So stand by for a grandstand finish. 2 seconds, the gap now between Leclerc and Hamilton. 4.5 seconds between Russell and Antonelli, who, if he finishes second and is looking a very good bet for second, will tie his career best finish from Sao Paulo last year.
Verstappen's dropped out of the overtake zone now. Anyways, 1.7 shows 2.1 up on the screen, 1.7 on our computer in here. And you can see where Verstappen's hard compound tyres have opened up again, have started graining, and he just lost some grip.
Shout out and a mention to Gabriel Bortoleto before we go into the last couple of laps, running in 9th for Audi. Sauber, thank you very much indeed. So many good memories of that team. Their first race here in Australia, 1992. Well, the 166th constructor is Audi. They've replaced Sauber, and on their debut, they look like they're going to score a couple of points. It might even be 4 if Bortoleto could get past Arvid Lindblad, who's run a super race himself. There's the gap on the track between Arvid Lindblad and Gabriel Bortoleto, 2 real stars for the future and for the present as well. Just a lap and a half, really, or a lap and 2/3 to go for George Russell and Kimi Antonelli for a Mercedes team that's, well, haven't finished 1-2 in a season-opening race since 2019 when they won both championships that year.
Yeah, very ominous, isn't it? But it does look to me as if Ferrari will run them close if they ace everything. And I think we've got to expect McLaren and Red Bull to develop. They'll develop their way into that gap as well and close the gap down. So we'll see. Every track's going to be a different story this year as well.
Yeah, correct.
Very different story.
You'll be getting up early next week, will you? Watch the Chinese Grand Prix. And the sprint race to come as well. 2 qualifying, 2 races, 1 practice session. It's not a lot of time for the teams to do their learning next week.
Even Charlie Leclerc there, very wide in turn 10, as he can now see the Ferrari nose of his teammate coming up behind him. But Lewis is going to run out of time, isn't he, and distance. But he's definitely looked the faster, to me, of the 2 Ferrari drivers this afternoon. Just getting caught out a little bit with pit stops and running wide in the first corner cost Lewis some time. He had to re-navigate his way past those cars.
Yeah, he was into the daisies, sadly for him, and that did cost him right at the start. Hamilton on for a 4th place finish here for what would be the 5th time since joining Ferrari. He's not been on the podium yet, but we're on the final lap. So what has he got at his disposal? And look how the gap's continuing to come down just a little bit. Has he got more boost available to him? Can he just throw everything at the electrical deployment and see if he can close down on Charles Leclerc? Meanwhile, further on up the road is George Russell, and he's been further on up the road since Saturday morning in FP3, where he started to show why everyone thought Mercedes were the pre-season favourites and why he was the favourite for the Drivers' Championship. He went and took pole by a massive margin. He's had to survive people coming at him and overtaking him for the lead, but since he got it back again midway in this race, he's not looked like letting it go, and George Russell wins the Australian Grand Prix and starts 2026 in absolute flying fashion. For Mercedes, it's a 1-2 victory as Kimi Antonelli, who started on the front row alongside George, takes that second place. And for Ferrari, it's 3 and 4. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton separated by just 0.6 of a second as they get to the checkered flag. The wait for a podium at Ferrari carries on for Lewis Hamilton. The wait for a win in 26 was but a brief, minuscule moment for Toto Wolff and his team. They have confirmed why people think they're the favourites this year. There's a long way to go, but what a start for them.
I enjoyed the race, and I predicted 10 or 12 finishers yesterday, and we've got 16. I think Stroll is classified a finisher, but he's not running. We've got 16 runners at the end, which is perhaps a little more than I expected.
It's absolutely, it's superb. Given the job the teams have had to do for 91 days only between Abu Dhabi and the Australian Grand Prix, a short winter, a lot to do, for Russell, a lot to celebrate.
Great job. Awesome drive. Awesome weekend. Well done, mate.
Woo! Very nice, very nice. I like this car, I like this engine. Great job.
Be the star on the front.
George Russell, as I say, in celebratory mood, a 6th career win for him. Your race winner today. Behind Hamilton, Lando Norris held off Max Verstappen superbly well and put 3 seconds between himself and Max by the checkered flag. Max in 6th place. Ollie Behrman, points for Haas in this opening race of the season. Arvid Lindblad on debut, 8th place finish, magnificent. Gabriel Bortoleto 9th, and Pierre Gasly 10th for Alpine. And do you know what? That was
boy. Nice work there, Kimi. Great recovery. Felt a little bit tense at times there, mate, but yeah, great job bringing it back.
Thank you, everyone. What a start of the year. Thank you.
Alpine scored 2 points in the final 11 Grand Prix last season. Gasly's opened up the season with a point there ahead of Esteban Ocon. Albon, Lawson, Colapinto, Sainz, Perez finishing the race. 3 laps down, but well played him, and Cadillac Lance Stroll finished the race too. To take 18th, and we lost Alonso and Bottas, Hadjar and Hulkenberg and Piastri even before the start. Driver of the day, Max Verstappen, the Salesforce driver of the day. He deserves that, 20th up to 6th. And we're up and running in 2026, Martin.
I'll tell you something else that I'm seeing and feeling strongly is that Kimi Antonelli is going to keep George Russell on his toes. When you consider the big smash he had yesterday, how he recovered, and the poor start he had today, how he recovered, he was right there.
Georgie, congratulations, well done. It's a good start, car and power unit and the driver combination. Really good. Congratulations, really well done. We're all super thrilled.
Yeah, great job, everybody. Been a long time since we've been here, so very well deserved for all the efforts.
George looked so composed all weekend, didn't he, though?
In pre-season testing in Bahrain, he wandered down the paddock in his short shorts and his sports top, and he just looked like a man on holiday, not a man who's gone back to work. And I'm not saying he wasn't doing any work, he just had that air of calm about him even then. He knew, even at that stage, what the team had created. Now, others will catch up. For the Mercedes power unit customers, they are learning this engine all the time. There will be development going on for the teams, but you've got to take the opportunities when they come. And Mercedes have done that today with a 1-2 finish. 15 seconds clear of Charles Leclerc was George Russell.
Kings Lynn's fastest Formula One driver,
Oh.
sadly.
Well, yeah, I think you never had the car. That's the trouble, Martin.
No, he's driving beautifully. He really is. And there'll be a lot of moments this year with safety car restarts or changeable weather. There's going to be a lot of bizarre things happen. And George's got the experience now. He's done the hard yards, hasn't he? At Williams, joined Mercedes just as they stopped dominating, kept his head down, and now it looks like he's going to get the reward.
Absolutely. After finishing 2025, his most successful season in Formula One, he started out with victory here in Albert Park as George Russell, and last year a podium, a third-place finish. This year, 25 points and victory, and with it, the lead of the World Championship for the first time in his career. But there's a long way to go until we crown a champion for this season. Mercedes 43 points, Ferrari 27, McLaren 10 in the Constructors' Championship. The debrief begins. Got to say, Leclerc and Russell, what a great first few laps we had. And maybe the virtual safety car spoiled things a little bit, because that might have carried on and on and on. And Ferrari took a different route strategically, and never, after conceding that track position, never really looked, sadly, in hindsight, like getting it back again.
It was punch and counter punch, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You've got to think the whole lap. You've got to think at all times, because you'll get payback probably 2-3 miles later if you get it right and you can carry speed and do the right things inside the car and really get some payback at some point.
I mentioned David Lindblad, the 70th driver to score points on his World Championship debut, and what was the 400th race for the team as well. All 5 British drivers scored points, and a 3-time British winner of the Australian Grand Prix has the mic in his hands. Jenson Button.
Congratulations, George. You just won the Australian Grand Prix, but not only that, you've also just won the first F1 race of the new era. How are you feeling?
Feeling incredible. It was a hell of a fight at the beginning. We knew it was going to be challenging. I got on the grid. I saw my battery level. I had nothing in the tank, made a bad start, and then obviously some really tight battles with Charles. So I was really glad to cross the finish line. But honestly, thank you so much to the whole team, because it's been a long time coming to have this car beneath us, and I'm going to start off in a better way.
If you look at the results after the race, if you hadn't watched the race, you'd think, oh, Mercedes just had it easy. George just walked away with it. It wasn't quite like that, was it? And it was so nice for us as fans to see you guys fighting out there.
Well, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. It was, we had this suspicion that it was going to be a bit of a yo-yo effect. And as soon as one of us got in front, it just felt impossible to hold it. And obviously with this straight mode, we lose a lot of the front end on the car. So we're sort of just understeering a lot around these corners. So I'm sure the FIA are going to have to improve that a little bit, because it was a bit sketchy, but yeah, made it in one piece, and just glad to be 1-2.
You started the year as you had hoped, I'm sure. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Kimmy, that was a very up and down race, but congratulations on coming home P2, 1-2 for the team. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, was the best start we could have wished for. Unfortunately, the start was really bad, and lost a lot of pace. I mean, a lot of places, and I find myself, that I had to recover, but. Overall was a good race. The pace was very strong, especially at the end, and just looking forward to next week.
I think every time we watched the screen, you were overtaking another car, so it's nice to see in this new era that there is that opportunity to overtake.
Yeah, I mean, the racing was incredible the first few laps. With the overtake is so powerful that it can, give a lot of action. So it was really good fun at the beginning, and now a bit of rest, and looking forward to China.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Charles, first of all, thank you for making that race proper exciting with George. How was the car? How was the race? How is this new era of F1?
It was a very, very tricky race. I mean, honestly, at the start, I don't think anybody of us knew what to expect with the fights, with the energy, and then it's even more tricky for the overtakes to defend. You don't really know when your engine, your battery is going to cut in the straight, so while defending, there's massive speed differences. So it's been quite challenging, but I was happy to get out of this battle in first. Unfortunately, that didn't help us for the rest of the race, but it was a fun first part of the race. Then P3 is the best we could do today.
Yeah, that start was kind of what everyone expected from Ferrari, but you made the move on George in turn one. It looked like it was actually on the brakes rather than acceleration.
Yeah, and I think The person that is switching off the lights have been quite cheeky, because for the first start of the season with these cars to go so quick, lights off, was I think it took us everybody by surprise, and we're always very much on the limit with the power units. So I think that played a little bit in our hands, but it's part of the game. I mean,
I have to ask, without the virtual safety car, do you think you would have had an opportunity to fight George for the win?
I don't think so, but maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, it looked like Mercedes maybe had a bit more pace than us today, but maybe not as much as what we saw yesterday, so that's a good thing. But I don't think we could have one.
Congrats, guys.
Fred Vasseur waiting under the podium for Charles Leclerc to come out and take a piece of silverware back home to Maranello. But as they make the way to Maranello or back again eventually, the questions will be asked. Why didn't they pit at least one car under the virtual safety car or under the second virtual safety car? They had 2 stabs at it, but decided we'll stick with our original plan.
Yeah, I mean, Lewis called it, didn't he? Yes, they were a little bit faster than Mercedes, but as I said in commentary during the race, what Ferrari did there was give up track position, give up control of the Grand Prix at that point, and it gave clear air then to George Russell to babysit his tyres and get to the end of the Grand Prix without having to stop again.
He has an ability, George Russell, and a fine ability as well, to put in performances like this, 46 laps on that set of hard tyres. Kimi Antonelli in his second season did exactly the same, and will be helped by the likes of Bono, his race engineer, who, you know, vastly experienced. But George, the day